Pumping it. It is so good to be with you, and I hope that I can share a couple thoughts maybe that will give you some insight in terms of things you can do to try and be successful. I grew up in Weiser, Idaho. Who's from a city smaller than 4,000 people? Small. Okay, there you go. You guys, we communicate. We can talk. I grew up in a little tiny city. I lived on a dairy farm. And that formed the basis of who I am. I hope whatever happens in my life, I never change from what I learned growing up in Weiser, Idaho. But I had great parents who taught me to work hard and gave me a vision of what I could do. When I graduated from high school, I left and went on a mission and served for the LDS Church in Milano, Italy. So I was there for a couple years, and then I came back. I finished up. I was actually going to Ritch College at the time. It was a 2-year school. So I graduated from Ritch College, and I came down to BYU, and that's when I got into the accounting program. I'm just giving you a real quick history so that as I start to tell you some thoughts about how to be successful, you'll know where it comes from. You'll know sort of my background and what I did to get here. While I was going to BYU, I started working at this little tiny company called New Skin International. I'm like, what? Who put international on the last? I mean, we were only in the U.S. There was no international. It was just New Skin. Tiny little company located right on Center Street in Provo, Utah. In fact, the way I got started there is I knew somebody, and I went over to say hi to him when I moved down from Idaho to Provo to BYU. And he said, man, we are growing and we're just expanding our call center from 12 to 14 people. And I need to hire somebody. Are you in? I'm like, well, I wasn't really planning on going to work today. It's my first day in Provo. He said, no. Punches a time clock and we start working. He trains me on the phone. I started as a phone order processor, actually in 1989. So I worked there for just a short period of time while I was going to school. And then I left. Went and worked for a company called Grant Thornton. Agreed to go to Grant Thornton in Denver, Colorado. That's where my wife was from, so it made sense. And so I took the job, and just a few months before I started working there, they called and said, would you consider staying in Salt Lake? We've had some turnover there. I was graduating in tax, so they needed a tax person. And I said, no, not really. We're not that excited about staying in Utah. I grew up in Idaho. There was no real tie we had at the time to Utah. So that kind of passed, and a couple of weeks later they called me again and said, we seriously need somebody. Is there any way you'd just come meet with our partners? So I did, and we are so glad we stayed in Utah. You couldn't kick us out. You couldn't make us leave. No, we love this place. So that was back in the early 90s. I worked for a few years. I got my CPA license. And then New Skin called and said, would you come back and help us open up a tax department? The company was still really quite small at the time. We had gone international. It started to go into Taiwan, Hong Kong, Canada. Canada's not very international, come on. Started to expand into Asia, so I came back and I started in their tax group. About 2 years later, we started to expand into Europe. And they said we couldn't find a sort of an account to run our European, or a controller to run our European business. So they said, would you consider moving to Europe? So my wife and I, together with our 3 little kids at the time, we moved to Europe, lived in Holland, and I was on the road most of the time as we opened up a number of different countries in Europe. Great experience, really opened my eyes to the world there. And then I came back, and eventually I became the Vice President of International. So what does that mean? I was responsible to open any new country that we were trying to go to. That included Poland, Brazil, Malaysia, Singapore, China. For 5 years, I was in China every month, meeting with government officials, trying to build relationships. That was from 1998 up through 2002. And then we started to open China, which, by the way, today is our biggest market. We do $1 billion a year in business in China. And as we were getting ready to open that up, they said, would you consider, with your wife, moving to China? I said, no. We lived in Europe, but we just our kids were getting to a point where we weren't as mobile in terms of moving our family. And the CFO said, you know what, that's okay, because I'd actually like to move to China. So he moved and ran our Chinese business, and I became the CFO. I was 36 years old. A dairy farmer from Weiser, Idaho. 36 years old. The company was about $800 million in sales at that time. This was 2002. Over the next 14 years, I worked as the CFO, and the business did great. It grew from about $800 million to $2.3 billion. We went from about $60 million of profit to $300 million of profit over that 14 years. And it was at a time where I was starting to think, I could probably wrap it up, although I got 2 kids at home still. We have 6 kids total. 2 are still at home. They probably need to see their dad go to work, so I probably have a couple more years to keep working. And it was at that time that our CEO, who had been the CEO for 14 years, same time, he came in, the same time I was the CFO, we had worked side by side. Our offices were right next to each other for 14 years. Imagine the sort of relationship you develop when you work on every hard, you go to battle sort of every day for 14 years. And he grabbed me out of a meeting one day. We were preparing for what we did as an annual investor day, where we'd go to New York and present our plan for the next year. We were in the middle of preparing that, and he pulls me out of the office, and he says, and I could tell it was something different. I mean, it wasn't abnormal that he would pull me out of a meeting. Took me into the office, and he said, I was just called to be a mission president. I said, you were what? I was just called to be a mission president. I'm going to be leaving, and I think the board is going to ask you if you're interested in being the CEO. And I tell you what, I had to really think hard. I sent my wife a text. McCoy, do you have code with your wife? Our code is, I need a long walk. We have a lot of code, but that code means something big just happened, We need a long walk. We spent that night, the next day, talking about whether we really had it in us to do what I knew it would take to run a $2.5 billion company. It came down to one thing. We really felt like we had a shot at changing the world. If we could do what I could see in a vision we could happen, if I could really make this vision come to pass, we could do it. And so I called the board back, our chairman, Steve Lund, and I said, put my hat in, make it the biggest sombrero you've ever seen. I want to do this. We started out in March. I became the CEO, hired a new CFO, and things are starting to really go at our business. I'm pumped for what I think we can do going forward. Let me share a couple thoughts on what I believe helped me be successful. First of all, in life. Second of all, at work. And third, as a leader. These are going to be really simple. It comes from a Weiser dairy farmer. So that's pretty simple. We don't get too complex in Weiser. The first thing I learned is you get out of bed in the morning and you work. There's no substitute for work. And there's a lot of good that can happen before the sun comes up. Your mind's bright. Whether you're studying, whether you're working out, whatever you're doing, there's a real benefit to being up early in the morning. That's number one. Number two, you've got to see your potential. In 7th grade, I came home with my first report card. So I don't remember report cards really before 7th grade. I don't know if we just got S's and P's or whatever they give, but I just remember it was my first report card. I brought it home and gave it to my dad. My dad's a very humble man. He played baseball for the University of Utah, but very simple-minded. But man, he expected a lot out of us. I give him my report card. I was pretty happy, actually, about my report card. He starts looking through, and I could tell by the look on his face, this was not good. He looks at it and he says, this C, right here in history, tell me about that. Average. That's average. I don't know about when you were going to school, but when I go to school today, C is average. And he looked at me and he said, I'm not raising average. If you would have given everything you had and got a C, that's different. But you did not work hard to get this C. And I don't expect you to be average. All of a sudden, that changed my perception about my potential and what I was supposed to live up to. I never got a C again. School doesn't always come easy to everybody. I'm not saying a C is bad, but you better live up to your potential. And sometimes it takes somebody to help you see what that potential is. For me, it was my dad, giving me an expectation that was here. It was interesting. I was talking to one of your fundraisers here, and she was telling me that, here we are in this small little school in southern Utah. Do you realize the potential of SUU? We can put this place on the map. You can put this place on the map. If you can graduate and see your potential, you can go do amazing things. But you got to be able to see it. You got to be able to recognize that your potential's up here. And once you do that, you'll go for it. And you'll raise the bar. The third thing, so first was hard work. Second was really seeing your potential. The third thing was just simply having a vision that the world is your opportunity. Interesting that I went back to my 20-year high school reunion in 2004. So I graduated in 1984. You guys weren't even born by that time. 1984, I graduated. There was probably 110 people that started out in 9th grade in high school, and by the time I graduated, there was probably 80 that actually made it to graduation. So there are a lot of migrant workers and things that would fall out through the process and didn't even make it through high school. So I go back to our 20-year reunion, and there was a really good turnout. I think there was probably 50 or 60 of those 80 that graduated, and it was so interesting to talk to everybody. The vast majority, like all but 5, were doing the exact same thing they were doing when I left 20 years earlier. Not that that was bad necessarily, it's just that they didn't know there was anything different. They didn't have somebody to point them. My dad and mom said, you will get an education. You go get an education, and then you decide what you want to do. Don't just do what sort of falls in your path, but decide what you want to do. I would tell you, have a vision. You can go do whatever you want to do. And particularly if you're passionate about something, go for it. Go for it. But you got to be able to see it. And so if you can have a vision that, there's a lot of things you can do out there. One thing when I started as an intern at New Skin, it opened up my vision of what I could do. I recognized, I can do accounting. I was initially in accounting. I can do this. And frankly, we normally have 10 to 12 accountants now in our finance and accounting group, 10 to 12 interns at any time. Why? Because I want them to have the same opportunity I had. Where they come in and all of a sudden they're doing accounting for a $2.5 billion company and they say, I can do this. This is not that hard. I can do it and I can be good at it. And then they go out and change the world. They go out and say, man, I'm going to go big. I'm not going to shoot small. I'm going to aim big. So those are 3 things I think in life generally that can really be helpful. Work hard, especially in the morning. There's something really, really magic about early morning. Number 2, see your potential. Number 3, have a vision for what you can go accomplish. So I started working at New Skin. And I was just watching everybody kind of how they worked, really trying to learn as much as I could. I was hungry for success. And as I look back over it, there were 3 things that I really believe help somebody be successful at work. These are simple. Number 1, be responsive. If somebody sends you an email, respond. Let them know you got it. Don't be don't somebody asking, is somebody home? Make sure you're quick to respond. Let them know. When you're asked to do something, be quick to follow up. Even if it's, I'm on it, I'll be back to you tomorrow, and then follow up and do that. But always be quick to respond, and that'll start to build trust with people. Second thing, whatever you're asked to do, try and take it to the next level. So I told you I was working in the phone order processing department, number 14 order processor. Thank you for calling New Skin. How can I help you place your order? That's what I was doing. About 2 months into that, I just started into the accounting school, and I thought, I'm going to go talk to the CFO of the company. I'm going to see if I can get into the accounting department. So this was in 1989, and I went in, and he was on his 10 key. Okay, this is the typical accountant, right, that you used to think about. He's on his 10 key, just pumping out, and this tape came clear down and was rolled all around the floor. And he kind of asked me what I was there for. I told him, I'm just going into the accounting group. I'm working in the phone order processing department. I'd love to spend some time in the accounting department, try and get some experience. He said, well, what do you think you could do for me? And I said, I think I can take that 10-key tape and I can put it on the computer and make your life a lot easier. He was reconciling what we call our commissions account, which is all the distributor commissions that we pay. He was reconciling all the outstanding checks by 10-key, adding them up. So he said, okay, I'll let you try it. So I came in the next day, spent all that, I worked hard that next day, got the whole thing set up on a spreadsheet, reconciled it, then going forward just in minutes, instead of all these 10-key with all the opportunity to make a mistake. And so whatever assignment you're given, see if there's a way you can do it better. And never get into the sort of mode of just doing it the way it was always done. Continue to challenge yourself, saying, is there a better way to do this? Respond quickly. Always ask yourself if there's a better way to do something. Master it, by the way, and then train somebody else to do it, and you oversee them. And then you can go take on new responsibility. And here's the third thing. You never really promote yourself. In all of my career, I've never promoted myself. It's always taken somebody else who believed in me and gave me an opportunity. So you build bridges. You build trust with everybody you work with. Don't create enemies. It'll never be helpful. Create trust. And pretty soon when there's an opening, everybody's in saying, man, is there any way I can get Dakota? Can I get Dakota? I mean, this guy is great. He's, everybody's asking for you, and pretty soon it opens up this career path where you can just really go. So you build trust with everybody around you. And again, remember that if you're going to move up and have opportunity, it's generally somebody else that gives that opportunity to you. So you build trust. Let me share three quick things in leadership. We operate today will be just over probably $2.3 billion in revenue this year. About 75% of that business comes from Asia. We operate in 50 different markets, so there's currencies all over the world that we're trying to manage and take care of. How do we manage a big business like that? It's actually really quite simple. The leadership principles to management are really quite simple. My very first thing I would tell you is be an optimist. If you're going to be a leader, be an optimist. People want to follow an optimist. Somebody that puts wind behind your sails. Somebody you want to be around. So I'd start by telling you to be an optimist. If you think about great leaders or people you look up to, the majority of time, they're people that see the bright side in life. Number 2, have a vision. Don't just show up to punch the clock. Show up with a vision of what you can accomplish. You're all in school right now. What if you went to school and never declared a major? Take a lot of classes, right? You can learn a lot. You can have some fun. But you never really progress success to a point where you can graduate. All of a sudden, when you declare a major, accounting, right? I'm going to go into accounting. You organize your schedule. You get on a path that gets you there. You probably learn more when you're studying because you think, how am I going to apply this? This is something that's probably going to be important to me. So you start to apply that. If you have a vision, you become very effective at what you're trying to do. The same thing applies in leadership. If you have a vision, people want to follow you. They can see where you're going. It's clear in their mind. So having a vision is really, really critical. The number 3 thing I would say is you empower people to reach their potential. If you can help them see what their potential is, and then you empower them to be able to go, you trust them, you build their confidence in themselves. Sorry about that. So often it feels to me like we put ourselves in a position where, if you're trying to fly, like you're trying to fly like this. And you're working hard, you're flapping hard, but you don't really fly. When you empower people, they spread their wings. And while they work hard, they work smart and efficiently, and all of a sudden they gain confidence in what they're doing. You see it with sporting teams. So often there's talent on the field, but it's not really leveraged in a way that people can spread their wings and go and play. Kyle Van Noy is the guy who graduated from BYU. You probably know him, right? Okay. Gets put on an NFL team where he never really had a chance. He just didn't really get in an opportunity. All of a sudden, he gets traded a couple weeks before the playoffs to the Patriots. And all of a sudden, he becomes like almost a starter in 1 or 2 games. He's making a lot of tackles. This year, I think he's like their leading tackler. He got in a spot where he was able to use his talent and just fly. And so often, I think as leaders, it's not about what we do. It's about what we allow the organization to do. So really empowering people to be successful. Be an optimist, have a vision, and empower people to reach their potential. So that's 30 minutes right there. That's a lot. How about we open it up and we'll have about 20 minutes for questions. Anything I can answer. And by the way, there's no bad questions. So go for it, Dakota.
All right, I'll just talk loud. So your last comment about building others' confidence, do you have any something specific? Build others' confidence, tell somebody to break and stuff like that. How can I build someone's confidence? Yeah.
Well, maybe I can share an example as a dad. We have 6 children. There's one thing I want above all, and that's to see my kids happy and successful. But so often they have a hard time seeing exactly what their potential is. So for example, I have a son who played basketball for Lone Peak. Not really confident, not 100% confident. Until there was one time so Jackson Emery, do you remember Jackson Emery that played at BYU? We asked him to come over and do some one-on-one work with our son. All of a sudden, through having somebody, what we were telling him didn't really quite seem to click, Jackson came over and started working with him. And he just sort of began to blossom. His confidence level and what he could do just started to blossom. So that's one example, but I can tell you with each one of our children, when we're able to help them see what their potential is, so maybe our daughter will come home and say, you know what, I really like dance. Okay, let's figure out how to make it so that you can really see if that's something you're good at. So you get them some dance lessons, you put them in, you start to help them have a good experience, and all of a sudden their vision of what they can do opens way up. We had another daughter, by the way, who's really good friends with McCoy's wife, Taylor, and because they cheered together at BYU. We ended up taking her to a BYU. She was in gymnastics. In fact, I was asked, have you been down here to SUU? The only time I've been here is for a couple gymnastics meets, which was when my daughter was 10 or 11 or 12. But we took her to a BYU gymnastics meet because she loved gymnastics. She was probably 8 at the time. And her team was helping run, you know, when they run the little scores out and then they hold up and show everybody the scores. So she was helping. And we finished the meet and we were driving home and we said, how'd you like that? She said, that was so cool. I want to be one of them someday. I said, you want to be one of them? What did you like? What was the thing you liked? The way they were cheering for the BYU gymnastics team. She was watching the cheerleaders. What she wanted to do was become a BYU cheerleader. So from the time she was, I think, about 8, she had this vision. All of a sudden, her vision opened up, and everything she did from there forward was not about gymnastics. It was preparing because she wanted to be a cheerleader at BYU. So really helping people see their potential and then giving them the encouragement they need to press forward. That's how I'd answer that question. What else? Yeah.
I just have a question. If you could expound a little bit more on how you see the potential of your team or whoever it is. How do you go about finding that so you can?
I think it starts with a belief that generally most people have a lot of ability. I look at it, do you guys realize who you are? Do you realize what you can go do? You can be great at whatever you decide to put your mind to. I fully believe that. So usually by the time I'm working with somebody, they've kind of determined what they want to do already, what they're passionate about. Let's say they come in as an accounting person or my marketing people or whatever. So they've kind of determined already. And then I think it's allowing them to have, trusting them enough to have responsibility to see if they can go do it, and encouraging. And not overseeing them too closely because then they'll second guess everything they're doing, but allow them to really go try. And so I think generally, first of all, trust people. Trust that almost everybody wants to be successful. And if given the right opportunity, they probably will be. And I think if you start out with that premise, you're partway down the path already of allowing somebody to reach their potential. Yeah.
So I was just wondering, you said that you got your undergraduate in accounting and also pursued a master's degree in accounting. And I was kind of curious as to know what motivated you to go into accounting in the first place. At what point did you realize that that was what you wanted to do and that's what you would excel at?
Yeah, that's a great question because I don't know if I really wanted to do accounting forever. I kind of knew that I wanted to do business. And accounting seemed to come pretty easy to me. So I was actually taking a business class, econ class, stats class, and it seemed like accounting was the one that clicked the easiest to me. So I thought, you know what, this will be a good base for business. And so I went the accounting route, and the further I went down that path, the other thing I liked about accounting at the time was you're pretty certain you can get a job. And actually, the environment today, the work environment's pretty good where regardless of what you're studying, there's a lot of jobs out there, a lot of demand. It's hard for us to actually hire people, good people, because there's just a lot of opportunity. You guys are going to be entering the workforce, I think, at a really good time, where if you just have a skill set, you're going to have a chance to go be successful. So I think from my standpoint, accounting gave me a base that I could build from. And it really did. I mean, it really helped me understand, I think, what happens underneath a business to really help it cash flow, help it be profitable, things like that. But you know, I would tell you that whether you're going accounting, finance, whatever you're deciding to do, you can be successful. For me, it was accounting because I felt comfortable doing that. But whatever you feel comfortable, go for it. Go for it. Get your degree and go for it. And aim high. Don't be average. There's plenty of people that are fine being average. Let them be average. Let's try and be our very best at whatever we choose to do. If you decide to be a third grade teacher, go be the best third grade teacher in the school. Go try and make a difference and really aim high. Yeah.
What's your vision of New Skin now?
To get us in beast mode. You got to see his shirt, okay? It says beast mode. So, now, I love that question. It's really simple. I think we got a shot at changing the world. But the only way we do that is touch more people. We have to get out our opportunity, our culture, our vision with more people. So my view is to do that in 3 simple ways. We've got to make the platform, which we use social selling today. That's the best way to get in touch with people. We've got to make our products so they're no-brainers, so that people can look at it and say, oh yeah, I'd love to try that. What does that mean? It's got to be the right price point. It's got to be demonstrable. It's got to be simple. And it's got to be compelling. And then finally, we have a program. So however we're going to incent our salespeople, it's got to be motivational so that they're really encouraged. So basically, the incentive is aligned with what we're trying to accomplish. So we have a great business. Our CEO previous to me did a great job. It wasn't like I was coming in to a team that was, what's BYU, 3-8, whatever. I wasn't coming into that situation, right? I was coming into a really good situation already. So it was just a matter of refining the vision. And I felt like the first thing we needed to do is change the mindset that we could really go win. And win big. And that we weren't going to be average. We were really going to go. So I had this video that had been sent to me by my daughter who lives in Houston. Her and her husband live in Houston. They have 2 kids. And they're really cute kids, okay? I'm the grandpa, so that's easy to say. And they were out riding along in this toy car. It was even a Mercedes, so good choice on the toy car. And they were driving. You know how the car goes really pretty slow, but there's a faster speed? And it's all on video, and my daughter turns to our oldest son and says, by the way, they're both in the car, so there's a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old in the car. And Ryan is driving. She says, Ryan, go in fast speed. And he looks at her like, you're actually going to let me go fast speed with my brother in the car? You know? And he just stares at her for a minute. She says, yeah, it's okay. Go ahead and go fast speed. So he reaches down and pulls this lever up. And he looks over at his brother Luke and he goes, Lukey, are you okay with fast speed? We're going to go fast speed. You know? And he just hits it. And it just, you know, his head flies back. And then they just start squealing in exhilaration. You know, yeah! You know. And so I showed this to our company. I said, look, there's times when fast speed is a little uncomfortable, but we're going to go compete. We are going to compete like we've never competed out in this world that's pretty competitive. And tried to shift the mindset that people could believe. So while we really tried to put a clear vision, we also tried to change the mindset that we're going to go compete and compete to win. Yeah.
So this whole fast speed idea is just kind of ties into what I was going to say. But like, you said that internships played a big role in like getting you where you are now.
Yeah.
Do you think like that's helped you from, like the internships helped you make networking and just make it easier to build bridges with others?
I do. I think it opened my eyes. First of all, to what I could do and gave me some confidence in myself. And then when I was filling out a resume to go interview, I felt more confident when I went in because I had some experience that I could refer to. And they said, tell me what you did at New Skin. And it was easy for me to go through a list of things. So it gave me a lot of confidence. And then secondly, it was those relationships I built at New Skin that ended up getting me hired back at New Skin someday. So while you never really know where it's going to lead you, it's almost always something pretty positive, whether you end up there or somewhere else. So I'd strongly encourage an internship. And by the way, if any of you get to that point in time and you're interested, I'd be happy to try and help if there's some way we could consider that.
I'm just curious, like, what makes New Skin like different from other competitors? Let's say, Amway.
Yeah. What we try and focus on is 3 key things. Number 1, our people. So that's primarily our sales leaders. Number 2, our products. We try and differentiate and innovate and be different in our products. And number 3, our culture. Our mission is to be a force for good throughout the world. So what we try and do is create a culture that when people are coming in and they're having success, they're not just doing well, but they're doing good. And they can really feel good about what they're doing. Those are our 3 areas of focus. Yeah. wish I had 30 minutes to walk you through that. Let me tell you a little bit right now. There's a new generation. Part of that, the millennial generation generally. Unbelievably talented and gifted group of people that are entering the workforce. But they think differently than we do. They think differently somehow than the way I grew up. They want to be independent. They want to be able to spread their wings and go. They want to own their own deal. We offer that as a company. We offer people an opportunity to, on the side or full-time if they want, to be able to take our products, which hopefully help people look and feel better about themselves, have an opportunity where there's not a lid necessarily placed upon them. The more you sell, the more you build a team, the more success you have, so there's upside. So if you need it to help put your kids through school, that you can do that. But if you want it to really go try and be successful, you can do that as well. And finally, we provide a culture, an atmosphere that's kind of family, where you're surrounded by people. The only way you succeed is to help other people succeed. How nice is that? To have a job or have an opportunity where the only way you succeed is help other people succeed. You really go to bed feeling good about yourself. So that's our goal, is to try and give people an opportunity to see what they can do to help them feel better about themselves and try and be successful on their own. Yeah.
There's all kinds of talk about meetings. SEO, are you for having meetings that are incredibly valuable? You should have them, you should stand them, you should have them.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a balance. It's a balance. Anything you can do with an email is going to be a lot faster than a meeting. But I'll tell you what, there are times where you got to get alignment where you can't get that through email or other communications. So I believe in both. What I do is I have 10 direct reports to me. Marketing, sales, finance, legal, HR, R&D. I have a 30-minute one-on-one meeting set up with my people every week. So they have a chance. We don't always have to do it if there wasn't a lot going on, but they have an opportunity every week to make sure we're aligned and they have direction. And then we have once a week a 2-hour meeting with our management committee. So that's all my direct reports. So we have a chance, again, they're the ones who build the agenda. I normally add a few things, but they get a chance to say, these are all the things I need alignment on. So yeah, I believe you can't necessarily do it without meetings. It doesn't mean you have to be sitting in the same room. You can do it by Skype nowadays. It's really easy. We Skype our teams in China and we have meetings regularly, but that collaboration is pretty critical for alignment. I think we're about out of time. Can I share one more thought? I believe in you guys. I believe you can go do whatever you want to do. There's going to be a lot of naysayers along the way that are going to try and provide opposition to you being successful. Don't believe them. Aim high. I'll tell you right now to decide who you want to be when you're successful. So someday down the road when you're really successful, you won't change who you are. You'll continue to be what makes you so unique and special today. So often you see people who have success and guess what? Their lives flame out somehow. They get out of balance. They forget who they really are. They forget their roots and they flame out. I would encourage you to try and set today a real clear vision of who you're going to be when you're successful, and then don't aim low. Aim high. It doesn't matter which city you grew up. It doesn't matter if you're a dairy farmer from Weiser, Idaho. If you can see it, you can probably do it. And I believe in you, so go for it. Thanks for having me. It's been great to be with you. Good luck.